This is grape video number 2, the structure of a grapevine, more information. In our last presentation, we explained that a dormant grapevine has 3 structures, a trunk, arms, and canes. This presentation will give some additional details about each of these parts of the vine. Let's begin with the trunk. The vines in many vineyards will have a single trunk. This is especially true of vineyards in climates like this California vineyard, which is not vulnerable to injury from low winter temperatures. Low winter temperatures can severely injure or even kill grapevine trunks. Therefore, it is useful in some situations to have more than one trunk on a vine, as shown here. If one trunk is killed, then the vine will still be alive and be capable of producing a crop. Here is a vine with 4 trunks. 1, 2, 3, and 4. If any one of these trunks becomes diseased or killed by low temperatures, the vine can still function. Later we'll discuss how to create new trunks to replace dead or injured trunks. The previous presentation explained that arms on a grapevine are all the rough bark portions of a vine other than the trunk. Let's look at this somewhat complicated grapevine to illustrate how grapevines develop their structure over a period of years. We'll start by pointing out the top of the trunk as shown here. When that trunk takes an abrupt bend, we'll call it an arm, and this portion of the vine was a cane 4 growing seasons ago. That cane matured into an arm, and one of those canes on that arm was kept on the vine as shown here. It is now a 3-year-old arm. That process was repeated, so this 2-year-old arm was a cane 2 growing seasons ago. The vine has been pruned with a combination of mechanical and hand pruning, such that 2 portions of cane, as shown here, have been kept attached for fruiting next growing season on the 2-year-old arm. Yes, this particular vine has a rather complicated structure. Fortunately, we can often simplify a vine structure with other management practices. In some situations, an arm of a grapevine is oriented horizontally and wrapped around a trellis wire. This type of arm is given a special name. It is called a cordon. Often, a cordon will extend from the middle of the vine space in both directions, like these vines. It is then called a bilateral cordon. Going back to this photo, we can see that a bilateral cordon can also be established with using 2 trunks. We will use the new term cordon in our future discussions about grapevines to show how cordons are helpful to structure and manage grapevines. The third structure of a dormant grapevine is the cane. It developed from a green shoot the previous growing season and has smooth bark. A cane has 2 basic structures. Each of the enlarged structures every few inches along a cane is technically called a node. Let's look more closely at a node. The node consists of a complex of 3 buds. If we cut through a node, we can see these 3 buds. The primary bud in each of these nodes, and sometimes the secondary bud, are the principal source of clusters that become the grape crop in the next growing season. The tertiary bud has almost no fruitfulness, but it can help the vine survive if the primary and secondary buds are killed. To be technically correct, These structures along a cane are called nodes. However, growers often call the entire node complex a bud. Therefore, to simplify our conversation, we will also call these structures along a cane buds. The other parts of a cane are the straight, smooth areas between the buds. They are known as internodes. There's another structure readily visible in this picture, so we'll point it out. This is a tendril. They develop at the nodes, except at those nodes where clusters develop, like this, this, and this. Growers sometimes call these clingers. They serve the purpose of attaching a vine to objects as they grow, like a vineyard trellis, like this. Let's now look at a few pictures of green shoots and canes on grapevines to see how they relate to each other and how our vine management can influence the development of canes. This is a Concord grapevine in the latter part of the growing season, when the grapes are changing from green to purple. The grapes on this shoot are nicely colored, and the shoot to which they are attached is well along in changing from green to a woody brown condition. This shoot is still very green, and the clusters on that shoot are only partially changed to purple, indicating the maturity of the shoot, and the grapes are lagging behind the first shoot that we looked at. Here are two shoots on a grapevine. The leaves have been removed to show the very different levels of maturity of these two shoots. One shoot is still very green to its base, while the other has become brown and woody over its entire length. So the maturity of shoots to canes can be very different from shoot to shoot on the same grapevine. Here is a vineyard at the end of its growing season. Notice the fall color of the leaves on the trees in the background. The cluster at the lower left is one of the clusters on these vines. The berries appear well colored, and the shoot to which the cluster is attached is very well ripened to appear brown and woody. When the leaves fall off of this vine, this brown shoot can then be called a cane. It could be a source of fruiting buds for next year's crop. In contrast, this is a vine that was not pruned severely enough. The fruit is lacking in maturity, as evidenced by the reddish coloration of these Concord berries, which should be a dark purple by now. Unfortunately, the green shoots show very little ripening into woody structures that will become canes after leaf fall. This shoot shows only a couple of inches of brown woody maturation at its base. This shoot shows no maturation at all. The parts of the shoots that remain green will die. There will be little chance to obtain fruiting buds for next year's crop from these shoots. In later presentations, we'll discuss pruning methods for grapevines to produce both a quality crop and shoots that will ripen into fruiting canes to produce the next year's crop. That's it for this video. We now know more about trunks, arms, and canes, and we have added the terms cordon, bilateral cordon, node, internode, bud, and tendril. In our next presentation, we'll look more closely at grape buds because they are so very important. All the green growth and all the grapes on a grapevine begin with a bud.